Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great weekend out there so far. There's a tropical wave out here in the eastern Atlantic that has everybody's attention, and rightfully so. And that is what we're going to discuss in this morning's video. We're going to give you the latest information. The first thing we'll go over is current conditions out here in the Atlantic, the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and how they do continue to increase the percent chance of this developing. And then we'll go over all model guidance, and then we'll have a section of the video where we sort of geek out with you guys a little bit, discuss the environmental background of the Atlantic steering currents, and just the fact that regardless of if this hits anybody or not, I personally think we're going to get a powerful hurricane. So we'll speak on all that, and then we'll talk about today's weather, and then we'll end the video. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure this is going to work, as always. And it is, so good to go. Nice little streak there with that working. But just to circle a couple things here on your screen, there is a lot of unsettled weather across portions of the southeast and off the coast of the southeast. We'll continue to bring just a lot of unsettled weather. This is Invest 96L. If you guys remember, been tuning in for the last several days, you know that once upon a time this did have a decent shot to develop, and in fact I thought personally this would take our next name. But even if it was, most model guidance always had this going out to sea. So I'll get these two circles off your map and we'll circle the main show, and that is this vigorous tropical wave right here that is now fully emerged off the coastline of Africa. And it is popping off some intense convection this morning. And that's indicated by the colors you see on your screen. You see the yellows, the orange, the reds, and then the blacks and whites kind of embedded between those colors. That indicates colder cloud tops, which means we have some stronger convection, stronger storms, which means we have taller updrafts. And the taller up they go, the colder it gets in the atmosphere. And this is indicated by these colors you see on your screen. So let's go on and take a closer look at this tropical wave, as the sun has definitely came up on it now. So you're going to see the screen kind of change a little bit and get a little bit more better resolution wise. So this thing just looks like your classic strong tropical wave. It already kind of has a curve to it, if you will. And, you know, it seems like it's been hanging around this same area for like the last 24 to 36 hours. At least to me it has. But this thing is gaining some latitude. In fact, I would say that it's moving more so northwest than just flat out west right now. And that's pretty much what model guidance said was going to happen. So gaining a little bit latitude, moving a little bit further north. But this looks like a very, very healthy tropical wave. So will this sneak around and develop into a tropical storm much sooner than maybe what we were originally thinking? Absolutely, it could definitely do that. But this is a look at the wave now. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center now, it's 7 o'clock right on the dot. Let's see if we do have a new update, and we don't. So I'm going to try to pull up a new update at the end of this update on the tropics. I've been trying to catch the latest information. I've been pretty good with it so far, but this is the latest from around 2 a.m. Last night, well, this morning. It is now up to a high chance to develop, and high means it shows up in the red. So now we don't have that orange anymore. We have the red. 70% chance of Invest 97L, which is what this is called right now. Just an area under investigation. The next name is Aaron with an E. Has a 70% chance to develop now into a depression or a named storm. And where that red X is, that is actually where kind of the heart and soul of this tropical wave is currently. But like I said, 70% chance to develop in this red area. So this has everybody's attention. We've been speaking on this well before it was dubbed an area of interest, right? Many people were, not just me. So let's go over all model guides. We'll start off with the Euro. And before we get going, do not make any conclusions off what you see. We got a lot of tracking to do with this system. So like I said, just don't make any conclusions off all this. We just try to see what the trends are and all that good stuff. So we'll start off Tuesday morning, so 48 hours from now. If I forget to mention the days of the week or the time or the dates, it's up here. It's probably pretty small on your screen, but it's up there just in case I forget. So this is where our tropical wave should be right about 2 days from now, based off the Euro. And it's pretty weak. I mean, it doesn't look much different from any other greens and yellows on your map. But you see the L kind of hangs with it, and it remains pretty weak. We get into Thursday of this week, you can now say, And then we get into Friday. So we're about 5 days from now. This thing's still pretty weak. It looks like it has some more moisture with it, though, at this point. And then this gets sort of north of the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico. And then that millibar number, begins to drop. But with the euro, it struggles, really strengthening this. And I'm kind of surprised that, and I'm about to show you here in a second how it recurves so fast when it's a weaker system. So, but we'll discuss steering currents, recurving things here in a second. But it's 1,006 millibar low, starting to get close to tropical storm status. And then it really begins to take off. And as soon as it begins to strengthen, it gains latitude. It hooks in north. So let's go on and switch it to this. And we're going to look at a different thing than what we've been just because, well, it recurves. So here it is at the bottom of your screen. That's it. Tropical storm. And it's strengthening into a pretty strong tropical storm. We get into 8 days from now. Yeah, we'll be tracking this for a while. And Bermuda's this little speck right here. We definitely need to watch Bermuda with this pattern. But we need to watch it with the entire eastern U.S. also. And then this really begins to strengthen into a Category 2 or so hurricane. And it misses Bermuda just to the west. But obviously, if it was that close, if that's exactly the way it happened, it would bring impacts in Bermuda for sure. Bermuda's a pretty tough community, built very well. They can withstand very strong storms. I haven't been there, but I've had many people tell me that. But this continues to hook, and it doesn't even get close to the eastern seaboard. In fact, it hooks so fast, it doesn't even bother Atlantic Canada at all. So it recurves. So let's compare the GFS now. Same thing, 10 millibar low. It looks like the GFS sort of correcting. It was very aggressive at first with turning this into a tropical storm at one point by the end of this weekend, which is kind of right now, right? But 48 hours from now, 10 millibar low. We get into Wednesday. We get into Thursday. It still wants to strengthen this much quicker than the euro. We got 1,001 millibar low. That's probably a tropical storm. And, I mean, it still hasn't even gotten to the southwest Atlantic yet. And then this turns into a hurricane by this coming Friday evening, 988. That's definitely a Category 1 hurricane at least. And then we get into Sunday morning. So that's 1 week from today. And this is strengthened into a 958 millibar hurricane, which would make it, if I had to guess, and that's all we can do. Because millibars doesn't always, equal to winds, right? But 958 would probably be close to a major hurricane. Anytime I say major hurricane, that's a Category 3 or stronger. So this begins to take that northerly jog as soon as it strengthens. And we'll talk about why they do that here in a second. And we'll stop it there, and let's jump it to this. Bermuda, this speck right here, obviously the eastern seaboard here, and this thing recurves and slams Bermuda as a major hurricane. But continues just to recurve. Doesn't even get close to the eastern seaboard. Doesn't even get close to Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, the communities up there. I'm definitely watching for you guys too. We definitely need to watch this. So that's a big time recurve. You think, okay, I think we're good. Don't think that. And it's not because I want this to hit anybody, guys, but we've seen this before. Now, models are better than, say, what they were with Hurricane, Irma and Florence, that showed an out-to-sea recurving, look for a long time, and then it adjusted, and then next thing we know that Irma and Florence hit. But models have improved since then. So you don't always want to get so, hung up on outliers there, because models have improved. Things improve. But the wrench that gets thrown into all of this is the Euro AI model. And I'm going to explain why it shows this in the steering current portion of this video where we geek out with you guys. So same thing as the Euro. Has a weak low. This is our wave, right? It's cruising on. Really keeps it weak. It keeps it so weak, it's much further south. Like, it's bringing a tropical wave into the Leeward Islands, getting close to Puerto Rico as we're getting into next Saturday morning. It has another wave behind it. That just keeps this weak. And because it keeps it so weak, it stays low, stays further south, carried more by lower wind currents. It doesn't really start to take off in the same area that, the Euro and the GFS takes off. A stronger storm system wants to gain latitude. This doesn't become strong at this point. It's still pretty weak. In fact, it's still just it's still just like a tropical wave, maybe a depression by the time it gets to the Turks and Caicos Islands. So we actually go back to look at the Caribbean, Southwest Atlantic, and the Gulf instead. It's because it keeps it so weak, it is able to just head west more. Then it begins to strengthen to a tropical storm, hit Cuba, and then sneak into the Gulf, which we don't want anything getting here. So 10 days out, something totally different than the Euro and the Euro and the GFS. Now, the 06Z Euro AI model could show something totally different, but of course, if anything gets in the Gulf, it's going to take off. So it turns into a Category 3 hurricane. So it's interesting because if you look at the run before this, and before that, I mean, it was showing a recurving scenario, but this thing is actually ticked further to the west. So that's interesting. Let's see if we do have the 06Z. In fact, I'm gonna pull it up here. Y'all bear with me. I'm gonna do something on the fly. I just always like to give you guys the latest information. That's the only reason why I'm doing this. And we don't have the 06Z run, so it is what it is. But it hasn't ran yet. But we're going to look at the Euro ensemble. Remember, this makes up 51 members. So look at this as a signal. And it throws all the members that develop in this 51 run kind of ensemble run and throws them all on the screen. So please don't think there's like 47 low pressures out here or something like that. Now, we get all the way to Thursday morning. We keep this going and we take it to about 6 days from now. Okay, so this is this coming Saturday morning, you can say, next weekend. All right, here it is. We got some members riding kind of low. We got some members sneaking into the Leeward Islands, Lesser Antilles, and we got a lot of our members north, though, of that area. Okay, and then we take this out to, say, 1 week from now. And this is getting a little bit too close for comfort to, like, the Turks, Caicos Islands, the Bahamas, and you're thinking, dude, you need to turn. You need to turn. Okay, and let's take a zoomed-in look at this. So after day 7, which the skill with these models really drop off after that, you can see a lot of these members begin to turn. And we take it all the way to day 10, which is all the way out to about next Tuesday evening, like August the 19th. And, a lot of these stronger members here, remember, the lower the number you see, the stronger the member really turn. But there's quite a few stragglers that just cruise way too southwest for comfort. Okay, so yeah, I mean, and another way to look at this, and I should have had this up. There's a lot coming to me as we roll, right? And I just want to get you guys good information. If you take this past 10 days, which, like I said, is not, not the most reliable thing to look at, and I'm going to look off the eastern seaboard here, and let's look at this, and so we can go sort of past day 10 right here. And you see all these little circles right here, attack of the UFOs, right? There is some that get into this area right here and get very close past day 10. A lot of them escape and recurve, but there is a lot of members that don't. Maybe another way to look at that is this. This looks a little bit more scarier, but there's a lot of members that hit. In fact, I would argue more members get closer from the overnight Euro ensemble than, let's say, the 12Z. Well, I mean, there's still some on the 12Z, but it looks like a lot more to get closer. So we're not done tracking this, guys. Please don't take conclusions. It's one of the most common things you see in the comments on social media and YouTube. Like, there's nothing to worry about. It's going to recurve. They don't even put, like, punctuation in it. It's just nothing to worry about. Recurve. Fish storm. Well, I assume that, there's a lot of tracking to do. But what I would say is that the pattern would favor a recurve. Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but there's more to it than that. Okay, now what about the GFS ensemble? Remember, this makes up only 21 members. I don't know why it's having to load like that. I've already loaded it, but it does that sometimes. But you can tell it gets into this area, and we take it all the way till 1 week from today, and a lot of the members that form begin to recurve. Now, Bermuda would be right in the crosshairs of a recurve. So we get a little bit closer and we take this out to day 10 and bang. Bermuda right in the middle of this, but almost every single member recurves. I don't even think really one member, there's like 1 or 2 members down here that kind of break loose, but yeah, so. Continuing to move forward here, let's talk about the environment in the short to medium term. And why I kind of favor more so the euro. I favor it a little bit less than I did, say, 24 hours ago. But I do favor the euro more in a short term, the medium term kind of struggle with this system. So what you're looking at here is dry and moist air. The moist air is in the green, dry air is in the brown. So you can see this is our tropical wave. You can see a big slug of dry air out ahead of the system. And this pretty much has to plow right into that. And that's why that number actually rises. It weakens as it goes into this dry air. And then as it gets to right here, it begins to sort of get into a better environment. And it cocoons itself more with just a solid sort of cyclonic environment of moist air. And most model guidance continues to show a little bit of dry air getting into the system right here. It's been showing that for a few days. But at this point, it looks like strength-wise, the table is already set for this to explode, and that's exactly what it does. An upper wind environment allows this to really take off and cocoon itself with a solid, very moist environment, and that's why this thing takes off regardless of dry air, in the outer edges of this system, which, I mean, is normally the case with any tropical system, honestly. You're not going to have a system just, surrounded by thousands of miles of moist air. There's always going to be dry air somewhere around, but the thing cocoons itself well and it takes off. So in the short to medium term, it's going to just plow right into a lot of just dusty dry air from the desert off North Africa that we all know of. So the GFS, what's the difference? Well, it cocoons itself better in the short and the medium term. So, I mean, it has a solid moist environment around it. And the dry air never really bothers it much. And that's why it just takes off much sooner. Like it's a hurricane right here when the euro is still struggling for this to be a tropical storm right here. And this thing, just takes off and thrives and really creates a massive moist environment for itself. So that's kind of the short to medium term struggle of this system. Now let's talk about the upper wind pattern that would support what I think would be a major hurricane at some point. Now, just because it's going to be a major hurricane, if it does, doesn't mean it's going to hit anybody. So the first thing I want to show you is just pretty much low pressure and high pressure. High pressure is kind of this pinkish salmon color up here. Low pressure is, the only low pressure you see on the map is the low pressure of what would be soon to be Aaron itself, which is right here. This is the hurricane, the tropical system we're talking about. So there's a lot of white surrounding our tropical system here. That means that there's not a strong ridge influence on this system, a little bit, and I'll talk about that here in a second. And there's no tut influence. There's no upper level low kind of coming down here creating a lot of wind shear. And there really isn't a strong ridge sort of bearing down on the system. And even if there was, I mean, that wouldn't really hurt the system. So you gather from this that there isn't a whole lot of flow in this area. There is flow, but not a ton. So the system is able to sort of get in the Southwest Atlantic and not really be bothered by much shear at all. It actually kind of creates its own environment, and that leads us into this. So here's our system right here on the GFS. Okay, 994 millibar low, tropical storm. But watch as you move it, another 24, 48 hours. That number begins to drop, and this thing really becomes a powerful hurricane. And we'll stop it right here, 960 millibar low next weekend. Category 2 or 3 hurricane. All right. It takes off because there's no real wind shear impacting the system because there's really light flow. And the little bit of flow there is a ridge it's basically rounding the southwest edge of some weak ridging, which you can kind of see right into here. See how kind of this 591 line, that is the southwest edge of a ridge, kind of steering this system somewhat, kind of pushing it still more to the northwest, but this thing's so strong at this point, it's going to head north. Okay, and that's weak ridging. All right, but the environment, going back to that, supports basically a tropical system that can almost create its own environment. And basically this thing takes off. There's no shear, directional shear to really bother this. So it's able to really create an environment that supports divergence aloft. A lot of air being expanded out from the upper portion of this system. Yeah, I think the lower to mid levels of this system is really the cyclonic flow of where you have the convection, the low level circulation but you can get on top of this storm, which is that's what this is, 200 millibars, 40,000 feet up in the air. It's mainly on top of the storm, and air is actually getting pushed outward or anticyclonically. So in this case, it is anticyclonically. Air is being pushed out right here, then it rapidly goes down here. It actually creates its own outflow, whiplashes right through, creates a lot of wind shear right through the Caribbean, and this is kind of the outflow from a very strong hurricane. It's going like this, and it's fanning out. A little bit of flow against the system here, but it doesn't negatively affect the storm. So the environment supports a lot of air being dispersed out from the top of the storm. That allows for more air to rise. That gets pushed out. More air continues to rise. It's like an exhaust system for this system. And rising air allows for shower and storm action. Convection. Convection leads to what? A moist environment. A tropical system likes moist air. So therefore, this thing can create a very moist environment for itself. And there it is. Tight, moist environment for this system. So, hope that makes sense. Now let's dive into steering currents. I'm going to compare the Euro with the Euro AI model, because the Euro AI model, remember, takes this into the Gulf, right? So, trying to figure out where our system is, it's like I have to actually pull up the, here it is. Well, it's done jump to the 06Z. I should have known it was going to do that. So let's go back to this, and our tropical system is right here as we're getting into about Wednesday morning. Let's use yellow. Tropical system's right here. Okay, so you see sort of, you got the pink color right in here, then you got the kind of more muted red right here, and this little splotch of kind of just flat out red right here. So it goes from weak ridging, a little bit stronger ridging, a little bit more stronger ridging right here. But in general, this isn't very strong ridging, but it's enough to carry a weak low pressure right here. Let's use a different color. Let's use black. This way. Okay? The flow around this ridge, this weak ridging over the Atlantic is going just like this. Okay? Just like that. And on top, it's going like that. Okay? Just want you guys to understand the flow of the atmosphere here. Okay? Not a huge, it's kind of a long, kind of scrawny ridge of high pressure, but it's enough to carry a weak low pressure this way. Okay? A couple things happen as we move this forward on the Euro. We take it into Wednesday, into Thursday. The ridging continues to be pretty strong. In fact, it strengthens. You see a more highlighted color of red here. So you're like, okay, well, if I stop it right here, you know, this system, which is right here, by the way, is just going to continue to move this way, right? And, you know, start to strengthen and impact the Greater Antilles, Cuba, the Gulf. You know, this thing's not going to turn, right? Well, you know, watch what happens here. The system, two things happen. The system begins to strengthen right here. This is when it strengthens on the Euro. As it does, a weakening of the ridge begins to occur. Now, it's kind of tough to explain or really even understand for me what exactly happens here. And basically, it could be a combination of a couple things. One, you get two things working in tandem. The weakening of a ridge on top of the system, creating a weakness right here with this strengthening low pressure. Another thing is, with the strengthening low pressure, and not a super strong ridge regardless on top of the system, it's going to gain latitude regardless. It's going to work against that ridge. You know, a weak to moderate in strength ridge is not going to keep this from turning, especially when you have an upper wind pattern in this area that promotes a major hurricane. Major hurricane is not going to just chug west, regardless of the ridging in place. It's not. You're going to need some extremely strong ridging in place, and this is not extremely strong ridging. So this thing sort of just plows right through it. Okay? It almost creates its own weakness for it to escape. And that's why this thing begins to get north. And it could be a repositioning of the ridge of high pressure too, going this way. And then there's just a wide open weakness. And that's, you know, pretty much why this thing gets north. Combination of a couple things. And then it gets picked up by the jet in the northern areas of the hemisphere. So, and then it begins to ride on top of the ridge. So, yeah, honestly, you know, in my personal opinion, I don't really think the strength of the ridge changes much. I think, to be honest with you, I think it's more so of the fact that the ridging is not that strong in the first place, And this thing gets so strong that it's able just to kind of create its own weakness and just get north. So the key that you don't want to happen is if this stays weaker longer, it's going to sort of drift west longer, therefore have a higher chance to impact land. So what you want to happen here to avoid landfall is this thing to get really strong right into here. But that also doesn't necessarily correlate to a solution either, because the GFS does that and it doesn't turn super fast. But that's because I do think the strength of the ridge does get stronger at the end of this work week right here and kind of prevents this from escaping north too fast. Now, what about the Euro AI model? Why does it show a scenario where this thing gets into the Caribbean or the Gulf? Well, that's where a wave is right here. We'll flip it back to this. Okay, now we do have the 06Z Euro AI model. So we're actually going to go back to the OOZ, and then I will show you guys what the 06Z shows. But I don't want to get this confused. Why does it show it? Remember, it's right into here. Our low pressure, right into here. It's so weak at this point you can't even tell. And it's, once again, being steered by the bottom edge flow of this ridge. That's pretty strong right here. Not super strong, but strong. Okay, so you keep going. The low is so weak you can barely see it. Now, the difference here is we get the building and really the strengthening of a ridge kind of over areas of the Southwest Atlantic and over the Southeast. And with our low right here, it's not about to escape this way and work against and counter against currents that are going this way along this ridge. So this thing has no other route but to continue to go this way. And with a pretty weak low on this solution of the Euro AI model, that's our low pressure. It continues to just chug west. Now, the looks like the ridge is trying to weaken into here, but would this low pressure be strong enough to escape like that? And I don't think it would be. I think the forward momentum of this is already carrying it into the Gulf. And then you can see the weakness occur. Good example of it right here. See a weakness right here occur? It sniffs out that weakness, and therefore it hooks it north. But then ridging tries to build back on top of it, try to push it back west. Now, what does that latest Euro AI model show? Let's back it up here, and let's switch it to this. Let's actually just do this right here. Let's do latest one show, because it might show out to sea now. We're about to find out. Here it goes, and yeah, it's back east now. Okay, so the Euro AI model has corrected, and it's back east, but it still is not east enough, and ultimately it does make landfall as a powerful hurricane along the Outer Banks. But it has shifted back to something that the Euro and the GFS is showing, and it gets very close to Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and stuff like that. And of course, something like this would devastate Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, stuff like that. So we're just getting back and forth, guys. And I do think that OOZ Euro AI model run was definitely an outlier. Let's talk about today's weather. Okay, a lot of moisture cruising across the heartland of the country. We got flash flood warnings. Nothing severe right now, but we're going to talk about this more as we get deeper in today's forecast. We got a lot of rain sort of slowly turning around across the southeast. A soggy day in Florida areas of Georgia and the Carolinas expected for today. We just can't fully shake this pattern. It's been like this for about over a week now. Watches, warnings, and advisories heating up across the west. You got extreme heat warnings. We got heat advisories. We got flood watches littered across the middle of the country. Heat advisories in Oklahoma, northern Texas, and flood watches even across the Carolina and Georgia coastline. So that's that. As far as severe weather for today, marginal risk does extend all the way into the upper Midwest. We have a slight risk for areas of Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and western Kansas. And tornado threat is at a 2% risk along the Front Range today and really east. And then the wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. And the hail threat is at a 15% risk. So be careful. Some big hailstorms in this area again today. We had it yesterday, and we could definitely get it again today. The risk of flash flooding, there is a slight risk, across the Carolina coastline, a little bit inland in the Georgia coastline. So 15% risk of flash flooding down here. The bigger flooding threat is across the middle of the country. We actually have a moderate risk. Kansas City, Wichita, you guys have a moderate risk of flash flooding, at least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles of any given location. The Southeast today, a lot of rain dancing around. You can see rain getting pushed into Georgia, South Carolina, a lot of rain off the southwest coastline of Florida, a lot of rain hanging out over the northern Gulf, and plumes of rain continue into these same areas I just mentioned over the next pretty much probably the 48 hours at least, because tomorrow we turn around and do it again. Another wet start to your week, numerous showers and tropical downpours. And, a lot of people are like, man, I'm sick of the rain. Well, to be honest with you, if we weren't getting clouds and rain in the southeast, it would be well into the 90s and miserably hot again. Ask your folks west of the Mississippi. They're still baking in the summer while we've had a break for about 7 to 10 days. So if you're sick of the rain, I don't know. Which one do you rather want? You want sunshine and 95 degrees, or do you want some rain and cooler temperatures? I would take the rain and cooler temperatures, to be honest with you. But rainfall between now and 8 p.m. Monday across Florida. Most of it's off the coastline, but, man, just about everybody in Florida is going to get some measurable rain. You take it up the road into Georgia and South Carolina, a lot of rain on the way. They're calling for over 6 inches of rain in Myrtle Beach between now and 8 p.m. tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know about that, but we'll see. The Northeast, we go forward here. It's beautiful. Nothing to talk about. Enjoy your weather up there. We'll be talking about you guys for eventually. I'm not insinuating that future Hurricane Aaron is going to affect you guys, but, we're getting closer to the fall season, and winter's right around the corner. So I know I haven't talked much on y'all lately. Just ain't been a whole lot to talk about. South Central U.S., the morning shower and storm action will diminish. We'll have some Gulf coastline storms dancing around, and then vigorous thunderstorm development will pop off the Rockies in New Mexico and Colorado, then surge across Kansas especially, but it could extend a little bit into Nebraska and a little bit into Oklahoma. And then what's wild to me is that we have a moderate risk of flash flooding in these areas right here, but I guess it's more so for what's happening right now. I didn't really read the discussion, but it really doesn't show a whole lot after the morning and early afternoon stuff. But don't take my word for it. Take their word for it that there is a flash flooding threat. But just a closer look at Colorado. Here's these storms popping off the Rockies. These will be quite intense. Last through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So a lot of storm activity in eastern Colorado today. They could produce a quick tornado, damaging winds and hail. And a closer look at Kansas, we get into the later portion of the afternoon around dinner time. Things are settling down for the weekend, and boom, here's some storms to make things get a little crazy. Colby, Garden City, Dodge City. Big storms rage pretty much through the entire state through the overnight hours, create a flash flooding scenario also. So be aware of these storms. And, rainfall forecast between now and about 7 p.m. tomorrow. I mean, it does show a lot of rain around Kansas City, over 3 inches, and just a lot of rain from Kansas, southeast Nebraska, northern Missouri, southern Iowa. Up here in the north central U.S., big area of storms will surge through Iowa, eventually getting to southwest Wisconsin, areas of western Illinois, and it'll make it all the way up into the UP of Michigan by this evening. You guys could get some rumbles of thunder, some heavy rain. And maybe a little bit of action lingers behind it. But then as we get into tomorrow morning, it's waking up to a fresh start. Temperatures, the western U.S., not a ton to speak on out here. Besides, the New Mexico, heavy rain and some storm activity also possible in Arizona. Just hot, ridge building in place. So that's why you have all these heat warnings in these areas. But, the eastern U.S., it's pretty hot all the way up into southern Ontario. The southeast is getting saved because of the rain and shower activity, guys. I mean, it's hotter in the northeast than it is the southeast. So enjoy your break. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but I would say a good portion of the country is just warm, at least. Nobody's really cool. I always consider mid-August kind of the breaking point of summer, regardless of the temperatures. But it can still remain very, very hot, as we know. So I do want to try to catch an update on the Tropics, and, no, they haven't updated. I'm surprised. It's 7:30, so no update. If anything, they'll bump this up from a 70 to an 80% chance, but they might keep it at a 70, so that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and, of course, we'll do it all again this evening. We'll talk soon.